So are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. Cool. Um, Absolutely appreciate you, Dustin, for making the time to come on. And I didn't know the new news about, so you're completely separated. You're hanging up the mortgage hat entirely, right? And so it's TLOP all the way, right?
I am all in on all things TLOP. I retired from the mortgage industry November of 2025, and it's really cool that when I did, I was actually able to retain my employer at the time as like an anchor client of mine. So I still
Nice.
I still have a client who is my old employer. I just had learned that I'm sitting on something that I think is special. I'm sitting on something that I think our industry needs, and I wasn't giving it my all. It was always the girlfriend, it was never the wife. And it was time for me to be like, you know what? Let's put a ring on it. Let's lock this thing down and let's see what we can do if we commit all of our resources to it. So yeah, since November of 2025, the name of the game is create great content, make that great content available to all, continue to build a coaching community. That's the number one value in the mortgage space. By doing so, we'll be able to continue to shape the future of the mortgage industry. And then let's use some of our free time to go and consult and maybe even give some career advice to those that are seeking it, just based on the 20 plus years of experience I do have, the successes I was able to achieve, and quite honestly, some of the mistakes that were made, so that we can help shorten people's learning curves so they can go out as companies or as leaders, and they too can help us shape the future of mortgage lending.
Beautiful. No, I resonate with that. It's I feel like that that whole mortgage maturity thing, right? Like I have felt for myself that if you don't have a plan for yourself, you're a part of somebody else's. But
Yeah.
it's a confidence thing. Like, do we feel ready for our journey, right? And we're all on our own personal journey. So super cool. By the way, the so for people who don't know you, actually, let's start there. Um, your I found your Easter egg. I think that you mentioned in the show notes, right? Like the MF and DO, right? So that's an
Yes,
Eminem
that's your
reference,
Easter
right?
egg.
Ringer. Okay, love that. How old were you when you got started in the mortgage industry? Let's start
Yeah,
there.
so I entered the industry when I was 25 years old. So I graduated from college, degree in advertising and public relations. I sold TV advertising my first 3 years out of college. Um, Liked many parts of it, didn't love many parts of it. Found my way to the mortgage industry like so many others did in 04, 05 timeframe, and jumped headfirst in. And I honestly couldn't have told you the difference between a broker, a banker, or a wholesale account executive. But what I did know is I loved personal finance. I enjoyed sales, and I liked having a profession or a career that had unlimited income potential. So that's what I did. I was lost. I was broke. I was scared. I had a baby on the way. I had cut off my cable. By the way, I cut off my cable before Hulu and Netflix ever existed. I deferred my student loans long before we had politicians that were trying to just, make student loans go away through forgiveness. And I even drove around Central Florida with a for sale sign in my Ford Explorer Sport Track because I was doing whatever I could to eliminate that $400 a month car payment from my overall overhead because I was a rookie LO. Within 2 years, I was funding over 100 units a year. So I struggled those first 2 years, but I survived. After surviving, I started thriving just in time for 2008 and 2009 to happen. So then I had to live through the crash where I second guessed my career and I contemplated getting out of it. Thank goodness I didn't. I was able to build back. And when I built back, I grabbed two partners, and the three of us just went on this magical 15 plus year journey where we went from 40 million our first year in production. That was combined, by the way, all three of us with one processor and one assistant. Now, granted, the average loan size in 2009 was like 130 grand. So I guess we could have tripled that in today's numbers, but still, the story sounds better. We went from 40,000 a year to within 3 years, we're doing 40,000 a month. We went on to build out a $1 billion division. And even like my last month with those guys, I think that month we did like $70 million in volume. And I was a producer for most of that time. I actually sold my book of business to my loan partner during COVID. So during COVID, Kevin, who had been with me for a decade, he took over. We started funding all the loans in his name, and that allowed me to take a step back. But a lot of people know me, Thomas, through my podcast, because in 2019, 2020, I guess it was 2020, I started talking about everything I learned because I became a mortgage loan originator. Now, I call that the shit they don't teach you in school, right? Because I look at how I grew up, the neighborhood I grew up in, the family I come from, the schools I went to, and I learned way more about life and business and marketing and sales and personal finance and real estate investment and budgeting and credit, all because I became a mortgage loan originator. So I start talking about it. I couldn't come up with a good show name, so I call it the Loan Officer Podcast. And lo and behold, mortgage loan originators started tuning in. And they started tuning in at first by the hundreds, then the thousands. I think I looked recently, we have just on YouTube alone something like 1.5 million downloads on just YouTube, which means we have double that on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. And it's because of the podcast, I've been able to open up a coaching company and now a consulting company and a career advisory services company that if you asked me 5 years ago, would you be doing any of those things for a living? I would have been like, hell to the no. 5 years ago, I would have been like, I'm probably running a $3 or $4 billion division, or I'm running a $3 or $4 billion IMB. But no, here I find me. It's 2026. We're recording this. I retired from production. And by the way, I got to retire from production. How freaking awesome is that?
Yeah,
For
you
anyone
did
who's
it. You did it yourself and weren't like pushed out for one reason or another. You did the thing and
I did the
chose.
thing. I made the money. I saved it. I invested it. Like if I didn't want to work, I guess I don't have to. I don't know what I would do if I wasn't working. And I sure as heck probably, if I wasn't working, I have to follow one of those things. What do they call them? It starts with a B. Budget. And I like my life better when I don't have to follow a budget. Like my
Right?
favorite budget is
Right.
this. I save 20% of everything I make and I spend the rest.
There you go.
And if I
Isn't that
can't
a conscious
spend all
spending
of the
plan?
rest, then I just save some more. That's the best budget, but not many people can do that early on in their lives and their careers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I forget where I heard that. Actually, I think it was a masterclass. I actually enjoy masterclass like Chris Voss. I love the
Oh,
FBI.
yeah.
He's a
Yeah.
negotiator. But there was one on finance, and that's where I saw the idea of the conscious spending plan, which right is to not do a budget and it's instead to just understand how much of your money goes to some of these things. And really, it's about freedom to spend because it's just like you get to spend the rest. So the way you kind of said it reminded me of that. Let's back up a second because there's so much there, and I need to touch
Back
base on
up
that.
a bit and sit the cup down.
We're
Tangerine
gonna back
chronic,
up. We're
yeah,
gonna
I'm
back up.
effed up now. Is that what we're backing up to or no?
Exactly.
Yeah.
25 years old, and you mentioned who was it that got you into mortgage? Like, what exactly was the bridge between
Oh my
that?
goodness. So my childhood best friend, shout out to Brian Miller. He's a Border Patrol agent in San Diego today. But he was graduating from college. He did the part-time track, so he was a couple years behind me in school, although we grew up together, like literally BFFs, two doors down. We're only like 40 days apart in terms of like our birthdays and our lives. And I was selling TV advertising. I was pretty miserable working at a local TV station, and he has a degree in finance. He's looking for jobs. And Brian's a little bit of like, I call him an outgoing wallflower, right? His preference would be to be a wallflower. However, if you push him hard enough, he will be outgoing in short spurts. I'm probably the exact opposite of that. So I'm talking to him, and he's graduating, and I'm helping him look for jobs. And I keep on coming across these jobs: life insurance sales, account executive, financial advisor, and I'm just drawn to them. And I start, helping him interview prep, review job descriptions, and I start working my network. Well, another guy that I had worked with at the TV station had recently left to actually sell franchises for Exit Realty. So this guy and I go to lunch, and I'm like, hey man, you've left the TV station. How are things going? He's like, I love it. I start telling him about what I'm doing for Brian. He's like, hey, if you want to get in a mortgage, one of my clients who owns an Exit Real Estate franchise, her husband is a top lender in the market. Let me introduce you. Well, one thing led to the next. I went and worked for a company at the time that was ranked number 39 on Fortune magazine, best companies to work for. They had the number one training program in the country. They were out of the Southeast. I lived in Florida. That's part of the Southeast. I went in and I interviewed, not really knowing what a mortgage loan originator did, or back then they called us mortgage bankers. And I got the job. They sent me to training, and the rest is history.
Dang. Okay. And then in the pre-questions for the show notes, like you'd mentioned, because this is one of my favorite things to ask, and I love usually the story. So that's how you got into it. What was one of the most important things that somebody taught you about how to be a successful mortgage loan originator?
It's
And who was it?
interesting.
And who was it that taught it to you?
Yeah, let me tell you some of the best advice I got and who I got it from, and I still give this advice today. So my first manager was a guy by the name of Steve Walsh. Shout out to Steve Walsh. Back in the day, if you were a big college football fanatic and you're older than me, then you may know of Steve because he was the quarterback at the University of Miami during the U heyday.
Okay.
And Steve was ultimately drafted by the Cowboys in the first round. He's a Heisman hopeful. By the way, I knew none of this when I interviewed with him. The only thing I interviewed with him is I recognized he was taller than me, which not many people are. And I felt like his hands swallowed up my entire forearm when I shook his hand, which if you've ever met an NFL quarterback, they have really big hands. And anyhow, so my first boss was Steve Walsh. And I remember Steve took my wife and I to dinner before I went off to this boot camp style training program. And he said to me, he goes, if you can give me 2 years of your life, I can guarantee you a successful career. But if you cannot dedicate 2 years, I can't offer you shit. Or guarantee you shit probably. And that was Steve to me. And lo and behold, Thomas, I'll tell anyone who's willing to listen, month 20, I was ready to quit. I was done, throwing in the towel. This is not working. I'm not making money. I'm not successful. The only reason why I didn't quit was because Steve Walsh had said to me, give me 2 years, I'll guarantee you a successful career. By the way, it wasn't that I was going to stay in mortgage. On month 20, I was just trying to stay another 4 months so I could be a man of my word, so that when I quit, I wouldn't feel like I let Steve down because I at least gave him 24 months.
Right, you made a
By
commitment.
month 23, I'm closing $2 million a month. It's crazy how I went from month 20, ready to quit, ready to give up, and finally that little bubble burst. All of that sales activity, all of that networking started paying off, and leads came in and pre-quals came in, and I started funding loans, and the rest is history.
So maybe he said it in a different way, but really he was talking about that flywheel concept, right? It's like you have to build momentum and then you hit some kind of catalyst and it actually, so it was month 23 where it kind of that commitment you had made to being consistent, even though maybe it wasn't obvious at that point, it was framed in that way, but that's what helped.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And still
Okay, wow.
today, I would tell someone, if you can't give it 2 years, don't do it. I mean, that goes for my coaching company. That goes for my podcast. That goes for any type of investment I make into a company. 2 years. I'm all in, head down, blinders on for 2 years. If I can't give something 2 years, I won't do it.
Okay. So really quick pivot, and I love actually, so because you're a natural at this and you do this every day, right? You've got the gift of gab. Something I also love talking about is one of the things that you had to learn for yourself the hard way, right? Because there's the purpose of this podcast, right? Is there's 2 ways to get experience, right? We're either lucky enough to learn from somebody else's experiences, or we have to go through it ourselves, and through that, gauntlet or challenge, which isn't always so bad because we can learn, and be better coming out the other side for that. What was one of the most important things that you've learned about how to stay successful that nobody actually taught you? You learned yourself.
Let things come to me. And that's hard for most people that have high drive. And it's a double-edged sword, or it's a fine line that you're going to straddle, because so much of what I want to do is I want to will it to happen. I want to jam that square peg through the round hole. I'll run through the brick wall. I'll say, hold my beer. And for some people, we need to channel that energy and literally infuse it into them at any way possible. But there's some of us that we were born with that energy, And we also we almost need to like take a deep breath, take a step back, and remind ourselves that we can't force everything to happen. And sometimes if you let something come to you, you can stay more sane. But better yet, for me, I can chase fewer people off. I have learned the hard way that my drive, although it works for me, it doesn't work for everybody. And if you're on my team or you're in my orbit, I can very easily run you over, not intentionally, not maliciously, but if I could slow down and let things come to me, at certain instances, I would be better off in the long run. The second thing is, and this goes for a lot of us entrepreneurs, it's the gap in the gain theory. I live in the gap. I can tell you everything that's not going the way that I expect it to. I can envision something that is so euphoric. It's like leprechauns and unicorns, and it rains candy, and I sweat coffee. Like it's like the most amazing world to live in. But then I get so disappointed when that doesn't happen in real life. Whereas if I that's living in the gap is focusing on everything that should have been better, but it wasn't. If I can live in the gain reminds me that, hey, Dustin, last month you did $60,000 in sales. And although you were aiming for 80, do you know last February you did 40,000 in sales, right? The gain reminds me of how far I've come, how far I've grown, and that we're on the right path. The gap has me focused on not achieving some arbitrary number that I threw out there as a big, hairy, audacious goal, and then feeling like I suck, the team sucks, and everything's going to hell in a handbasket, when really it's like last year, if you did 60,000 in revenue in 1 month, it would have been your third best month of the year, right? And you grew year over year by 50%. Like, dog, dude, high five, fist bump, give yourself a hug. And that was something that I had to learn the hard way.
Hmm. I mean, would you consider yourself an eternal optimist? Like you're positive, like always positive about things, or what?
It's interesting. For 43 of the 47 years of my life, hell did the yeah. My glass is always half full. However, I got to be honest, and my wife and I talk about this. 22, 23, 24, 25 have been such a meat grinder. It has been humbling. It's kind of rocked my world a little bit, be honest with you. I still think naturally I'm more optimistic than most people. I tend to only see the good in people. I tend to only focus on what can happen. I get that dopamine surge when I sit back and I vision and dream about everything that can happen. I'm terrible at watching sports because when I go into any sports game, I'm just convinced my team can win anything. Even if Vegas says we're only that I'm sorry, Vegas says we're gonna lose by 13. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
hear
how I
that.
was during this Super Bowl because I'm a Patriots fan, and I was all like,
Okay.
I don't know
Yeah,
how we're here, but we can
yeah,
do it. And it's like,
yeah. Yeah. So
no,
um
we tried.
yeah, that's a long answer to say I think long term, all in, I'm an optimist. However, I want to be a little vulnerable with the audience and be like, no, but the past couple of years have been a real MFer that I feel like certain days there's less wind in my sail that used to be there. And I have to work a little bit harder to get that wind back in that sail.
And maybe you found that changing who you're surrounded by, right? Or who you're who slash what you're working for, right? Like what is the like what are you building, right? Like because I think that what you're saying is since in the past couple of years, like what changed, I guess, like how have you evolved or the vision evolved that's maybe contributed to that?
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be hard to answer. So I'm trying to circle back. And like if I looked at time frames like 8, 9, 10, 11, I didn't have a pot to piss in and I didn't have a care in the world because no one else around me had a pot to piss in. And we all had been recently throttled. We've been knocked on our butts. and we were all collectively rebuilding, right? We were rebuilding. It was no big deal. Some of that was where I was in life. I was in my late 20s. I wasn't in my late 40s. But then you go on this run of from 2011 all the way through 2021, where everything was working. Everything. I was making great money in 2013. I didn't need 2021 to happen. Don't get me wrong. I benefited, like high five, thank you so much. But I didn't need it because I went from 2011 to 2013 to 2015 to 2017 to 2019. Even in 2018, which was a little bit of a kick to the junk, it was still a really good income year for my partners and I. Then we get through COVID where we essentially front load, honestly, 5 years worth of income into those 2 years, right? So we front load 5 years worth of income. We get to 22 and we knew we were going to get punched in the mouth, but we thought we'd get punched once, and we got punched every freaking day. And then when Barry Habib told us that we stopped getting punched in May of 2020, what would have been 3, we were like, hell yeah, we're good. And then when 2023 came and went, and 2024 came and went, and you're like, holy cow. Like this is death by 1,000 paper cuts. And it's like, had someone told me in 2022, hey, I'm not just going to punch you once. It's going to be every day. It's going to be paper cuts. It's going to be a kick to the junk. I think I could have mentally prepared. I think I could have actually physically made some changes to the business model much quicker, and maybe even changed the mindset and the strategy. So it was that time frame of the prolonged, we thought we had to get through 9 months, then we said 18 months, then it's 36 months. And if you study the data, 68% of mortgage companies made money in Q3 of 2025. It dropped down to 63% in Q4. That means we still have almost 40% of our industry not making money. So yeah, I think all of that, after such an amazing run, I think all of that culminated to the holy cow, right? When are we going to see those wins? Like, when are we going to see all this hard work, all of this experience, all of this effort I'm pouring in? When's it going to happen? But if I sit back and I look at the life I have, I look at the friends I've made, I look at the businesses I'm a part of, and quite honestly, the income I'm earning, I still make really good money, right? The problem is I maybe am comparing it to a timeline that doesn't exist anymore and may never exist again. So what I have to embrace is that attitude I had in 09 and 10, that, hey, this is fun again. We're building again. We're dreaming again. I think once I start embracing that, which I've been able to do the past 100 days, I think now the optimistic me returns, especially when I start living in the gains and staying away from the gaps.
Wow. Yeah, you're making me think about, for me personally, how probably in the last couple of years, I learned the value of just being really brutally honest about wearing myself on my sleeve, to the point where, like, this is me, and if you don't like it, then you will deselect actually from even wanting to work with me. And good, like, I'm glad, but that's a maturity experience thing that really had to come, with a little bit more time and then taking more risk, right? And maybe stages of life, we can only afford to take so much risk at any one time. My wife was a medical student, and then, she's a resident now. We've got 3 young kids, and I like to say life doesn't get easier. We just got to get better. We can't handle something, that we're not ready for, right? Whether, to each their own thing. I'm, religious. If somebody's into God or the universe, whatever. I just have found, by being more intentional, really centering myself there. What was it? I wrote down, this is, and it is, you've mentioned it, right? Like, for entrepreneurs out there, I have found so much value, success, freedom in reducing the amount of time between thinking of something and doing it. Like, the most successful people, like, they just don't spend a lot of time. And I'm a very overly analytical person. And I love me a good Excel spreadsheet, and I could spend forever analyzing something. And yeah, I actually probably the last couple of years I hadn't thought about it that way, but just being beat down so hard, being forced and almost like proven wrong, right? That it has allowed me to really thrive and change to develop a little bit more in some of these ways that I find really valuable. Being more like some of my mentors and the role models I have in my life in that way. So no, that's
Well,
super, super
you
beautiful.
you probably heard this, but perfection is the enemy of done.
Yes.
And I'm a big fan of doing. I'm a really, you know what? I'm a really good doer, is what I am. If I want to do something, I go do it. And I think that every decision requires thought, but not every decision requires massive hours of thought. Right. So it's
If you,
like
if
I
you
need to
have a good
think this
filter, right?
through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to think this through, mitigate risk, figure out what's my worst case scenario. Am I comfortable with worst case scenario? And if I can get comfortable with worst case scenario, if I've thought through and mitigated all risk, then I just start solving for how. And I've learned that I build it as I grow. Right. So, okay, cool. Like we're going to grow together. I don't need to see the last step in order to get on the stairs. In order for me to get on the stairs, I need the first two steps visible. Once I take those first two steps, I need to trust that before I take another step, I can see the next two. And eventually, I'll get to the top of the staircase. And sometimes, and this is what I've learned recently, and maybe why I talked about my optimism being rocked. I thought I was only climbing one flight of stairs, and instead, this is like the freaking Leaning Tower of Pisa. And what I thought would take me 9 months is going to take me 19, or what I thought was going to take me 24 months is going to take me 40 months. But once I embrace that it is the journey and not the destination, which it is, like none of us want to get to the destination. That's death. So let's not get there. That's no fun.
Yeah.
So then let's
Perfect
just
doesn't
embrace
exist.
the journey and, and keep on making sure our glasses are half full.
I think that's a great place to end it, dude. That's awesome. No, I love it. And so that's a great, fantastic answer, I think, to your personal evolution, like, and how you've gotten to this place now, and your current mission, right? Like your current mission to just give it all away, right, and just help people and be really intentional about what you're doing for, the industry, right? The loan originators today. So awesome, cool,
Well,
and
this industry has been amazing to me. It's been amazing to my family. My grandkids don't know it yet because they don't exist. And honestly, I don't want them to exist for another decade. But my grandkids don't even know yet. But I know how amazing this industry has been for them. That if you're anything like me, we owe it to our industry. We owe it to the future us's of the world to start paying it back or paying it forward, however you want to pay it. So I do mine by doing a podcast. You can listen to it uh, twice a week, Spotify, Apple, or on YouTube. I do it by creating YouTube content outside of the podcast. So you like free coaching and free sales training? Go and subscribe to my podcast. I'm sorry, go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Right, you can also subscribe to the podcast, but the YouTube channel, which we call TLOP, it stands for the Loan Officer Podcast. Um, if you like free, I have a newsletter that I write every single week, and that newsletter has sales tips, it has industry insights, it has marketing tips. It takes less than 3 minutes to read, but by signing up for the newsletter, you also get invited to one free masterclass that I host every single month. So that's more free, right? Like give, give, give. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm still an opportunist. I will still embrace being an optimist, and I'm still an entrepreneur. So I do invite people and companies to come be a part of what we're doing. And if you want to go all in, yeah, there's ways that you can join our coaching community. There's ways that you can have me come speak at your event. There's ways for me to take 30 or 40 of your best and brightest and put them through a boot camp that'll turn them into your next top producer. But if you don't want to do that, that's okay, because you still have many ways that we can learn together. I can invest in you and your people. It's just through the newsletter, it's through YouTube, and it's through the podcast that you can listen to on Spotify or Apple.
no, love it. One of my favorite things I share with people is, like, unfortunately, right? And we already said it, perfect doesn't exist, right? Like the end is death, but we don't have infinite time, money, or energy, right? So we just, at the end of the day, it's not personal. It is just, we have to be intentional about who who are we serving, right? Like we have like if we're serving a higher power, then we're serving our family, right? Like our, and other people than our team, right? Clients. We just can't, it's okay to make money, right? And I think that we just have to be honest about who we're best equipped to serve, right? A lot of the time it's the people we used to be. Kudos to you. You're definitely doing that. You're living that life now. So I love that. Thank you again, Dustin, so much for making
Thomas,
the time to
thank you
come
so
on.
much for having me. Y'all, thanks for tuning in.
All right, guys, if you made it this far in the video, and Dustin, this is Riverside, so make sure you don't hop off just yet, right? Because it'll upload fully after I hit stop. But consider subscribing to the channel, like this video, so that way you can see all the future podcast episodes that come out from the From Experience podcast. Appreciate you guys. See you in the next video.
Bye, guys.